Welcome to the third of my series on Windows for Bears of Little Brain. We've already looked at what we can do when we have one window open, and then what we can do when we have two windows open. So I guess the logic is obvious. Only it's not just three, it's multiple windows. What can we do when we have multiple windows open? Now this should be a fairly short affair because most of what I'm going to show you is pretty much the same as with two windows, but in fact it will make more sense once you can see that we have multiple windows. So I'm going to be opening 5 windows, and I'll explain that as we go. I want you to imagine that you have a project that you're responsible for. You have to write a report. So you need to open a word processor. This isn't really a word processor, but it's a good enough similarity. So we're going to write our report on here. But obviously as you write that report, you will need to check out some information. So you're going to read some source material. And I want to suggest that you've got it in a book. So we'll open that information. Here we are, we're looking at some information in the book. You're also going to be making some notes. You may want to collect some notes along the side as well as what you're writing in your document. So we'll have a second document where you can actually keep some notes. For some obscure reason, you also need to have a calculator open. So we'll open a calculator when it decides to open. There we go. And obviously you're going to be picking up some information or saving information. So we'll have a file manager open as well. That's one I prepared earlier. So we have 5 windows open. And what I've tried to portray in kind of telling this little story of what you're doing is to show you that it's not totally irrational that you may have that sort of number of windows open. For some people even more, often less. But 5 is not an excessive number of windows. And yet it's quite cluttered and difficult to work out how you can operate. So I want to talk about how we manage these windows and how we can move from one window to another. Now I told you last time that one of the things you can do is you can access these windows through the taskbar. I'm afraid I've actually made some adjustments to my window. The taskbar is now on the left rather than the bottom. That's something perhaps I may explain in the future, but for you it will be along the bottom of the screen. Don't worry about it. So if I want to go back to one of these word processors, I can click on that icon and notice there are 2 of them, and so there are 2 images, and I can move from one to the other. And if I have to change to, let's say, the calculator, I simply click on the icon with the calculator. I want to go back to my word processor, click on the word processor. Want to go to the file manager, click on the file manager, and so on. So it's quite easy to move around. It's not something that's overly challenging. If you're a keyboard person, instead of using the taskbar and these icons, you can use the Alt and Tab method again. You remember you hold down the Alt key with your thumb, and in fact you tab. Now I'm still holding the Alt down with my thumb, and I can see all 5 documents. It's gone to the next one on the list, as it were, which in fact is the file manager. And if I lift my thumb from the Alt key, that's the one that will be selected, and there it is. But of course, if I tab again a second time, holding down the Tab key, the Alt key, but I tab a second time and a third time, you can see that the selection is moving through the option of these different windows. So if it's in fact the book that I want to read, I tab 4 times, as it turns out here, let go, and the book is there and I can read my page. And then I tab back to get to my word processing document so I can write in what I've read in the book. Not only can you tab, but if I want the calculator, I can use the mouse. I can just click and it opens as well. So I can use a combination of mouse and keyboard. So remember, hold down the Alt key with your thumb, tab, and it brings up this little presentation of the windows, and then tab, keep tabbing, or use the mouse to get to the one that you want. And that explains why that's so useful. When there were only 2 documents, it didn't look so good. But once you've got multiple documents, it becomes more useful. And the same techniques as we had before still apply. So I can take this and drag it as normal and drag it to the edge of the window. And when I do that, it occupies half the window. And notice the other 4 documents are all presented. And I can in fact click on one of them. And there it is, ready for me to read. A little bit small, it has to be said. I can in fact increase the size of that text, but then, well, there you go. We can try and make it as big as possible. That's readable, that's doable. And now I can make notes while I read. So, all of the things that we did before are available in the situation where we have 5 documents. So nothing new, really. Exactly the same ideas that we did for 2, but with 5. But it becomes more useful when you've got larger numbers of documents around. And if you're one of these people who would actually make notes on a piece of paper beside you or something like that, of course you can still do it. You work whatever way you're comfortable. But there is no need. And the whole point of the computer is that it's flexible and most of what you want to do, you can do on it. So hopefully I've shown you how you can at least get a little bit more productive using the computer